Hey, welcome to the Unnecessary Nonsense Podcast YouTube channel. So a bit of a surprising thing happened at the end of the last podcast. So that's already been archived on the channel, so if you haven't heard it, check it out. But we caught wind at the very end of the podcast that Bob McCown had retired, quote unquote. But I guess it wasn't really a retirement, I guess. It was just a matter of, it was announced that he was going to have his last episode on Friday. So we recorded the podcast originally on Thursday evening at the same time as the NBA draft was going on. And we were basically just bantering a little bit back and forth at the end after having recorded the podcast. But we spent a couple of minutes just kind of chatting back and forth, and once we figured out what was going on, we decided just to put together a little bit of a conversation related to it, because it was a bit surprising. Just the suddenness of it and just the weird circumstances, some cryptic tweets, a little bit of back and forth, and right now I'm recording this section here on Saturday evening. Not really too much has changed, so I'm going to post it up here for you. It's going to be audio only, so I'll put the little logo on there. So the first maybe 30, 40 seconds is going to be just us discovering it, kind of in the middle of a conversation, and then trying to get and then, you know, I cut it off where we start to get our heads around it a little bit, put the little audio piece in there, and then afterwards is our conversation talking about it. We'll recap it and then talk about some of our thoughts. And then at the end, we just get a little goofy for a couple of minutes, but it's only about a 7 or 8 minute conversation. But in case you're interested in the topic, that's kind of our thoughts. One quick point I'll make before I shoot to the audio. The big reason that I'm throwing it on here, and it is a very niche thing, because if you're outside of the Canadian or maybe areas where the Sportsnet 590 in Toronto is syndicated, it is a bit of a niche thing. It's just unusual in the Canadian context to have a long-time sports talk radio host like a Bob McCown have this weird, unceremonious conclusion to a long-running show. Usually, it's one of those things that you would announce in advance, and then everybody knows, and you make a big deal out of it. Just the fact that it happened so suddenly, and that things quickly changed, seemingly from the normal to suddenly, all right, Friday, you're off the air. It just seemed a little bit odd, and that's what kind of struck us. So I'm going to send it to the audio now.
Yo, did you hear this? I wish I had read this. I think you need to give an editor's note on this.
Well, we can, depending on what it is. I'm still recording. I can throw something in there if it's worthy. What is it? Explain to me.
Bob McCown's retiring.
Really?
Yeah. Sports radio host Bob McCown leaving tomorrow.
that's sudden.
So what has happened? Who did he piss off?
Because now I have to do the editor's note, because now it's interesting. Hold on. All right, reset. Hold that thought. Mr. Turnbow brought a rather interesting little tidbit to my attention. So we're going to do kind of a mini Unnecessary Nonsense Pod bonus inside of the episode, where Dave is actually going to be here for once. Dave, can you explain just first, what is it that happened here?
I read an article on Sportsnet that says Bob McCown, who's the longtime host of Primetime Sports on the Fan 590, or now Sportsnet, the Fan 590.
Which is syndicated across Canada and some parts of the U.S. in different formats.
Yeah, is leaving tomorrow. This article was published at 4:57 p.m. today, saying tomorrow is going to be his last show. And really saying nothing else. Other than, you know, he's a legend, which we all know, which is true. He's awesome. He's amazing. I really hate this news. But it's curious as to why he's going, and the cryptic tweets that have been put out since.
The circumstances are what make it. So the reason for tacking on this little piece at the end is he is a notable person in these parts, certainly. But the bigger reason is the randomness. So just think about it this way. You're talking about someone who's been a radio personality, you know, / television, because you can see the radio show on TV as well in a lot of markets here. This personality has been out there for years and years and years and years and years. Bob McCown has been on the Fan 590 network for, you know, I think 20 years plus, thereabouts. You know, somebody like that going off and doing a send-off, a retirement or whatever is notable. But it's the speed and randomness of it. It's not like it was something that was announced and then, you know, today was his last broadcast. It was something that wasn't really announced, wasn't mentioned. This is the first we've heard of it. And now we see an article that mentions it. And then Dave is going to give you the cryptic tweets that make it suddenly interesting, because it's like, well, what actually happened here? What's going on?
And also, it's apparently not being mentioned on the air either. So there was no mention of in today's show. And according to Sportsnet, at Bob's request, they're not really going to bring it up tomorrow either, which is going to be his last show. So he's going to do his last show without really making much mention that it is his last show.
Which is totally normal behavior that rational people do all the time.
Yeah.
Dave.
So here's a couple of cryptic tweets for you. So first of all, from the man himself. Okay, I am leaving primetime sports and Rogers, but nobody can shut me up when I still have things to say. Stay tuned. I'll be back. In response to when he said reports of his retirement were 100% inaccurate. Now, the other thing that I find is an interesting sort of cryptic tweet, if you will, is from Dave Hodge. Now, we know Dave Hodge. He's on TSN, formerly of CBC, and had a very interesting, shall we say, departure from CBC when he flipped his pen at the camera. But he said, hey, at Fadoo Bobcat, which is Bob McCown's Twitter handle, we're all the same. We're employed until we tire of our employer or an employer tires of us. Sometimes it happens simultaneously. Interesting.
It's rare. I will say, just a note for someone, because we do occasionally get some listeners from the U.S. and welcome and thank you. It is rare though in Canadian media to have something like that randomly occur of that type. It's actually it happens, but it's a fairly uncommon occurrence, especially someone who is reasonably high profile within their niche. Like, let's be fair, sports talk radio is a niche, but within that niche, Bob McCown has been pretty prominent over the years. And there have been some on-air personalities that have had similar, like Dave said, Dave Hodge himself. But when that happened to Dave Hodge, that was in the 80s. It's not like it was recent.
Correct.
It's been a while.
Yes, it's been a long time.
So it's not like this happens on a regular basis. Someone of Bob McCown's, stature within the Canadian sports talk radio market, having this random departure, seemingly, from the network entirely, it'll be interesting to see what he has in mind as far as what his next venture would be, because obviously it feels like he wasn't happy about the terms of his departure. It doesn't feel like it was something that he would have chosen necessarily, but maybe something prompted him to choose it. And now,
and I'm sure more will come out eventually, but it's very, very sudden and very odd.
Indeed.
And he's been obviously with, like you said, been with the network forever. I don't know, something's up, but I'm just curious as to what exactly that is, because it seems very strange. Something obviously has gone down behind the scenes, because it sounds like this isn't entirely mutual, if I will.
And it is a rare day when you can follow up a lot of drama-filled NBA-ness with palace intrigue in Canadian sports talk radio? Question mark?
Yeah.
That wasn't the segue I was expecting today. That's it's been an interesting combination. It's been an interesting day, Dave. It's been an interesting day.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Here we thought the NBA was just going to surprise us again, but here, let's put it this way. I just want to go on this. If you look at Bob McCown himself, his last 5 tweets. Yesterday, he's talking about, Monday, we're talking about the parade, the Raptors parade. Hi, I'm going down to the beer market on Adelaide. See you there. Come by and say hi. Then, hey, we've got Nick Nurse on the program tomorrow. Yeah. And then I'm not retiring. It's 100% inaccurate. And then an hour after that, okay, I am leaving Primetime Sports and Rogers, but you can't shut me up and I'll be back.
You're saying this escalated quickly, is what you're trying to say.
It certainly sounds that way.
I don't want to break any news, Dave, but I think now would be a good time to tell you that Bob McCown will be taking over as representation of Kawhi Leonard, because I think that would be a really wonderful combination.
Okay, first of all, you know what's funny? I literally thought you were going to be like, you're being replaced on this podcast by Bob McCown. And I would have been like, fair enough, Carlos. I accept that. Kudos to you.
I really didn't want you to hear about it this way. But with his connections to Kawhi, we really need that insider knowledge to take this to another level. And I felt like that was the best way. Kawhi and I talked. I mostly talked, and he laughed in an odd manner. But,
of course.
But the point is, we got our message across. We vibed, and then we all both turned and told Drake to shut up, as you do. It was a bonding experience.
That wasn't necessary.
It was for everybody's benefit. The people at the club cheered. They applauded. Somebody had to do it.
As these things do.
Yep. Kind of a random extra news item. I don't know if it neatly fits into the podcast, but there it is. It's the thing that happened. And it was
there you go.
Talking about.
And I was actually here for once, just surprisingly.
Yeah, and it was worth talking about. So we'll throw it on there. As usual, again, thanks for everybody for listening, and we will catch you on the next regular episode of the Unnecessary Nonsense Podcast.
So that was it, a little conversation from us regarding the Bob McCown impromptu retirement. Again, kind of caught us by surprise, so maybe we'll have more to say as more information comes out. But as always, if you made it to the end of the video, much appreciated. If you could leave a like or subscribe to the channel, we would appreciate that as well. If you're interested in checking out the podcast, you can certainly check out the archived episodes on the channel itself. Also, if you look at the the channel banner and the About page, you can find links to get to iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, wherever your podcasts are found. You can just type in Unnecessary Nonsense Podcast and you can find us there. Also, you can check out our Podbean site, which is available there at any time as well. And I think I'll include it in the description, just so that you can go straight to it. So thanks for watching or listening, and we'll catch you next time.